Thank you for listening to PoliticalStorm.com. I'm John Small. Today, we have a guest, Sebastian Junger. He's the author of a new book called Tribe, on homecoming and belonging. And it's being released right now, just in time for Memorial Day. And the reason that I wanted to bring this into the political spectrum is because there are a lot of things that we can actually learn about. When we think about tribes, the Republican Party is a tribe, the Democrat Party is a tribe, the Independent Party is a tribe. So with all of that in mind, let's say welcome to Sebastian Junger. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you.
And the book is called Tribe, on Homecoming and Belonging. And now, first of all, how long have you been working on this book?
It's a short book. It's 100 pages. It's based off some research I'd done for a magazine article. And so it didn't take that long. It took maybe around a year for me to write.
And the thing that's interesting about this book, we're going to be kind of talking about how Trump and Sanders' divisiveness have created new communities for America seeking a tribe. Because, there are some people that are not familiar with the term tribe, but what a tribe is, it's just a big group of people. And so, you might hear people saying, oh, they're jumping on the Trump bandwagon, or what have I heard? The Trump train. I saw a sign that said, get on board the Trump train. Those are people who are part of the tribe for Trump, right?
Yeah, I should say that our evolution as humans has produced in us a very strong tendency to want to belong to groups. It's safer, it's self-reinforcing, it all makes perfect sense. There's a downside to everything. The downside to creating a strong group identity, as Trump has done, is that it risks dividing the larger group, which is this nation. So you have to be very careful when you use this idea of tribe. It's one that we got from evolution. It works, but it also can work against us.
And one of the things that's amazing with social media, I have seen the tribe concept spreading so much faster, because you'll have somebody that's a supporter and they'll say something on social media, and you'll see friends that have been friends for years who unfriend each other over things like this.
That's right. And I should also add that in the ancient sense of the word tribe, you're talking about people who live in the same place, who share resources, and who share defense. That's what a tribe really is. When we talk about it in the modern context, we're really talking kind of metaphorically. The point of my book is that when you lose that ancient sense of tribe, when you're no longer affiliated with the people you actually live near, when you're not sharing defense, sharing resources, as we were all sort of meant to do, you lose something very important in the human experience, and it's actually psychologically very, very hard on people.
Again, visiting right now with the author of a brand new book. We've got Sebastian Junger on the phone with us, and the book is called Tribe, on Homecoming and Belonging. And we're talking very much about the candidates that we have in the election. And we've got kind of the unlikely candidates of Trump and Sanders, and they grew out of America's feeling of loss and alienation. Explain to me how that worked out.
Well, I'm not a political expert, and the book really isn't focused on politics per se. But I think in any healthy tribal community, there is a form of social justice where you don't have people who are too poor and too rich. And that's how we evolved as a species, living in groups of 40 or 50 people. They were more or less egalitarian. With all the wonderful benefits of modern society, one thing that you get, the downside, is enormous income disparity. And I think what you're seeing in the Trump supporters, particularly in the Sanders supporters, is this big group of people saying, hey, wait a minute, we've been left behind. Why are our wages stagnating while the top 3% or whatever of the country not only is rich, but is getting richer? Like, that's not tribal behavior, and intuitively they know it, and that's where these political movements have come from.
And now, aside from politics, I'm looking at the info that we've got here, and it says there are also tribes that form out of tragedies, like 9/11 and Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Sandy. Let's talk about tribes that form out of things like that, where people have all gone through this disaster together.
Well, the interesting thing is that when you take modern society, if you collapse it through a calamity, an earthquake, a war, a hurricane, it doesn't fall apart into mayhem. It comes together in a psychologically very healthy way. So during the Blitz in London, 30,000 people were killed by German bombs. The authorities were prepared for mass psychiatric casualties along with the physical casualties. But the opposite happened. Admissions to psychiatric wards went down during the bombing and then went back up after the air raids ended. Hardship forces people to band together, and when they do that, they basically get happier and more functional, and they miss those terrible days, quote, terrible days. So what you have in America right now is a society which is very wealthy, and affluent and safe, which is a great blessing, but it allows us to be more and more individualistic. And ironically, that does not lead towards happiness. It leads towards loneliness and often mental illness.
Again, visiting right now with Sebastian Junger. He is the author of Tribe. It's a new book on homecoming and belonging and combining history and psychology and anthropology. Now, this book is available right now. Where can I find a copy of this?
Hopefully everywhere. It's in bookstores. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It should be everywhere.
And let's talk a little bit about you when you're not writing this book. What else do you do for a living, sir?
I'm an author and journalist. I was a war reporter for a long time. I stopped after a good friend of mine was killed in combat in Libya, and that got me to stop war reporting. I'd had a lot of close calls, and I figured it was better to get out. Now I continued writing books, and I made four documentary films. One of which, called Restrepo, documented the life at a small outpost in eastern Afghanistan with American soldiers, and Restrepo went on to be nominated for an Oscar, actually.
Wow, that's really cool. And I'll tell you, speaking of tribes, I know of some tribes: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. You know, those are some pretty strong tribes as well, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, again, really the classic meaning of the word is people who live in the same place and share defense and resources. Certainly when you're in the service, that absolutely qualifies, and I think that's one reason that the service is such a compelling experience for people. One of the things I noticed, I was out at this remote outpost off and on for a year with 20 men in eastern Afghanistan in a lot of combat. It was miserable out there. I mean, they didn't have internet or phone or anything. I mean, they were all sleeping in the dirt most of the time, and they all missed it. And it really made me wonder, what is it about modern society that people are so reluctant to come home to? They'd rather be in combat than come back home, and that's what the book Tribe tries to answer.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us, and it sounds like a fascinating book. Now, since we talked a little bit about politics, as we've been experiencing, I think, one of the most interesting campaigns, especially in my lifetime, with your insight on tribes, has this kind of surprised you to see how the Trump train and the Sanders train has been rolling, or is this something that you kind of looked at and said, I kind of expected that to happen?
I don't want to say I expected it, but what I should say is that same sense of tribalism that is making those campaigns very cohesive and close is also a deep threat to the country. You cannot, if we're going to understand ourselves to be a unified country, politicians cannot talk about their rivals, about other people, fellow citizens, as if they are the enemy, as if they are not in the tribe. You just can't do it. It will divide this country. ISIS is not a threat to our democracy in the long term, but that kind of contemptuous political rhetoric is a threat, and I think it's a very dangerous game to play, to speak like that about others, just in order to consolidate your base. It's very dangerous, and it's deeply unpatriotic.
No matter who it is that gets elected, you're going to be the president for all of those people, so why would you want to alienate half of the crowd? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
That's right. I mean, when you use that kind of contempt for the president, for the government, for your political rivals, you're speaking in ways that are usually reserved for the enemy, for speaking about the enemy.
Yeah.
You can't talk like that about people who are in your camp. I mean, like it or not, I mean, we can debate, we can dispute, we can argue, but we have to consider everyone in this country to be part of the unified whole, or the country eventually will fail.
Sebastian, thank you again for taking some time to chat with us. I really do appreciate it. I'm looking at the clock. I know you've got another interview coming up, so thank you again.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And again, Sebastian Junger, author of Tribe on Homecoming and Belonging. It is available right now at Amazon or wherever you like to buy your books. Thank you for listening to PoliticalStorm.com. I'm John Small.